For a lot of the other people that we've been interviewing who were involved with the land claims, the hardest thing for them to do was the extinguishment clause. Could you talk a little bit about that?
It's always been a very troubling part of the negotiations between Aboriginal people and governments. On the one hand, they give you rights and they recognize your rights to a very specific area of land. But in exchange for that, we had to extinguish our title to the land. Some of our communities rejected the land claims agreement altogether because of the extinguishment clause.
The government understanding of land claims and the Inuit understanding of land claims were two different mental ideas. And eventually it almost broke northern Quebec apart.
We're split. Split the Inuit people. Tayo may tuilangan nun.
Akaw siyang niluwa mo. Someone got shot in Ivuyavik because he was so pissed off with... Akaw ngintangan nun kakasugi kasutas with the land claims process sila with the land claims.
Ilang uvik kay tiyong itong mga araw talaw mata. You're expecting any time. Maybe I'm going to get shot this time.
Wakalo.
Tayo may talo ako si Mayo.
Kapian akong nahal.
Kapian ako talo ako si Mayo. Kapian ang lutok suni.
Ako yung Mayo.
Ako si Mayo lang Mayo man.
You can't settle a land claims agreement without the extinguishment clause.
But the people of Nunavik eventually, the majority, said majority rules. Sign it. Sign the final land claims agreement.
We needed to get beyond the legal aspects of settling a claim and obtaining the kind of sort of tools that we need to build our own economy and our own society. We felt we had to agree to that because that's the government policy.
And so they did sign the land claims agreement, but boy, northern Quebec was broken up for many years after that. Those old wounds are being healed now, and they're finally starting to become one. It took 25 years.
To make that deal unexplainable. How far do you take? I don't know. Would I sign the land claims? Yeah, but that's my opinion on would I sign it or not. Would you sign it? At that time, like we gotta look at the issue.
Really not sure.
had to get our claims settled very quickly because government was giving away resources to various companies. The more that government alienated reserves, they would not be available for us as part of a settlement. And people say, what's a claim? A claim is a constitutional document which you never settle everything. All you do is you do the major framework as tight as you can to allow people to use it, to make sure that they're in charge of themselves, they're in charge of their area, they're in charge of what's going to be done.
The Mackenzie Valley Pipeline has been a hotbed of controversy ever since the plan was announced. The government created the Berger Commission to study the social and economic impact of pipeline construction in the north. In 15 months, 700 witnesses have been heard, many of them outrightly hostile to the project. Others are content to see the pipeline constructed if environmental safeguards are built in. However, they do insist that all problems dealing with the native land claims be settled before construction begins.
When I conducted the Mackenzie Valley Pipeline Inquiry, that was in the late 1970s, I visited all the communities in the Mackenzie Valley and the Western Arctic and the Dene and the Inuvialuit. Said, look, we're opposed to this pipeline. We want to settle our land claims.
What happens here on the northern frontier, here in the northern homeland, will tell us something about what kind of country Canada is, what kind of people we are.
I wrote a report in 1977 that recommended to the federal government, we've got to settle these land claims before we build a pipeline, and we've got to protect the areas of critical habitat for the species that the Inuvialuit and the Dene depend upon.
The Inuvialuit claim got settled not long after Berger's inquiry. Now, today, the main issue in the north is the Mackenzie Valley Pipeline, and the biggest investors are the Inuvialuit of the Western Arctic. So they, true to the word that they said 35 years ago, will develop it in a time and a way that will benefit our communities.
If you look at all the worldly powers in the world, who does anyone take into account? The people that have the economic ability to represent themselves. In the new society, you know, we can have a government or self-government, but if you're poor, if your economy is not good, it's difficult to have a good government because you can't afford a good government.
Could you tell us a little bit about what negotiations were like when it came time to create the boundary in the west and separate the Northwest Territories and Nunavut?
It was not negotiations. The boundary was imposed on Nunavut by a government-type mediator, eh? And basically it gave up about 100,000 square miles of land.
John Monroe responded in 1980s. He said there had to be public support, which means all people, regardless of who you are, First Nation, Qablunat. And also he said there had to be agreement among the First Nations and Inuit as to where the boundary should be.
The votes in yesterday's northern plebiscite have now been counted, and a majority of the voters have said yes, split the Northwest Territories in two. The vote isn't binding on the federal government, but Ottawa says it's going to study the results carefully. Whit Fraser reports.
As results came in from the small, scattered Arctic communities, it became clear how the Inuit felt. More than 80% of them voted. More than 80% of them said yes, the Northwest Territory should be divided.
It's quite clear that a very significant majority of the Inuit of the Eastern Arctic want division, that the cabinet will have to take the whole question very seriously.
What do you think would have happened if the boundary wasn't decided around that time?
No Nunavut for sure. No claim.
So the claim was always on the line.
Yeah. Well, you need a boundary to have a territory, and one way of getting that was giving up 100,000 plus square miles of land. The Inuit in the Qaqortoq that gave up tremendous amount of land for the creation of Nunavut. That's the price we pay.
How did they?
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you guys got blamed?
I think so.
Do you want to tell us about how that felt?
Terrible.
Bobby said that he felt blamed. He felt like he was blamed. But how do I feel about his sacrifice, or the sacrifice that the Qtumut region made, or that the sacrifice that Qaqortoq made for Nunavut? I'm happy and I'm proud to be a part of Nunavut. And if losing those grounds was what we had to pay for Nunavut, then I would have paid it. And we did pay it.
There's something really new that I learned about Nunavut today, something that I've never heard at all. For the dream of Nunavut, the people in Coppermine, they lost lots of their land where they grew up, where lots of them were born, and the places the activities that they do out on the land, they lost it. Without the western part of Nunavut chipping in on sacrifices, there is no Nunavut without them. It's as if they're the backbone of the whole territory.
Do you think it was worth it?
Yes. The fact that we had the largest land mass in North America for Aboriginal claims, largest compensation package, and possibly largest subsurface title, and the fact that we succeeded with the division, that was important.
Yeah.
One of the most important, in spite of all these big items, ticket items I mentioned.
Why was it important?
Because it's for perpetuity.
One of the really good memories I have is when Air Inuit landed in Nain in the 70s, and it was a big deal for me because we saw this plane and it said Air Inuit. And we said, wow, where'd this come from? And people like Taka Curly and Amawaluk and Zebedinungak, they came, they used to come to Nain, and I was just overwhelmed with them.
What kind of words were they saying when they visited Labrador?
Well, the most powerful words, I could remember them saying Inuhatigi, like Inuit together.
Yeah.
One Inuit. That was very powerful.
I'm
interested to hear about the bureaucracy of the time.
When LIA first submitted their claim, the provincial government said that they weren't going to participate in land claims negotiations at all.
At all?
At all, period.
They can be quite frustrating at times. You have to, you're a long time, they're stuck. And to be honest, I don't know if we'd have an agreement yet today if it wasn't for the fact that there was a mineral development found at Voisey's Bay.
Every claim that's been settled in Canada, to my knowledge, is only being settled when there's a major development that means dollars for Canada. So we went away and we said, hey, the best thing for us to do is forget about what Canada wants to do, and what we came up with is something it's purely made in Labrador. We tabled that with the governments, and David, they were shocked. We blew them away. We never saw them for 4 months. They said, we don't know if we can deal with this. So we went back and said, well, why not? Look at other land claim agreements. You have done it, Canada. What's wrong with ours? What's wrong with your agreement, my friend, is that you have a very, very detailed and comprehensive self-government component. Canada has not negotiated that before. And what you have done is you've gone out and cherry-picked from every other agreement in Canada. And I said, what's wrong with that? You did it for others, you can do it for us. What's wrong with Labrador Inuit? Why can't you do it for Labrador Inuit?
What do you like about your agreement?
I like our self-government chapter. I like the fact that we will have jurisdiction over a lot of issues that we needed to have some decision-making about. I really like that. I think it puts the responsibilities back on our shoulders, which is where it belongs in the first place. I think it also has some really good sections in relation to land use planning and environmental protection, harvesting management, resource use. It's a good agreement.
See, with our generation, we were way too young to know what Nunavut was. And Labrador is the first land claim agreement that we remember and that we could talk about and say and get that kind of that feeling. Even though we're not from Labrador, it felt really good. We went to the Parliament and we tried to take part in all of the proceedings. We wanted to get that exciting feeling when after 30 years of working on a book and you sign it and wow, it does feel good. Like we're all authors in that book, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Cloudy, 70% chance of showers or drizzle this evening. Wind, southwest, 20 kilometers an hour, becoming light overnight with a low of 2.
When everything went on paper and it is done, it is now yours. It's here. It hit home. And it was tough.
Why?
You spend that much time of your life getting there. And the end result, you sort of say, was it worth it? And the answer is yes, it was worth it. And you see the people around you, they're all rejoicing because you brought something home. So you're proud, but it's very emotional.
From the highest Arctic, from Ellesmere Island to Mackenzie Delta, over to the Kivalliq region, over to Baffin Island and northern Quebec, and now Labrador. That's a huge amount of land, and we're all Inuit. It's amazing that we've been able to keep in touch and work together and achieve eventually the same goals, is sign our land claims the way we see fit. the way we see them fit into our world. Do you think Inuit would have gone this far if we weren't in Canada?
No, I don't. I don't know that if there's another country in this world that we would have had this much opportunity to make ourselves part of a country.
Do you think the land claims is a good vehicle for Inuit to go into the future?
To me, that's the only constitutionally recognized document where your rights are identified, and you have to use it, and you have to make it work. And the only people that can make it work are the Inuit who have the will to make it work.
Do you feel that Inuit youth feel the land claims? Do they feel that it's made a difference to their society?
Not really, no. No, not yet. A lot of kids don't even go to school in some of the northern communities because their parents aren't making them go to school. They're not getting educated academically, so their future is very limited in what they can do. So that's where you start, the things start to fall apart, and they don't see the results of the land claims agreements.
Kautigingippa asoktiak sumaya sitan pigasutase pisimalktase tukisiyogunne diokisutatamake kisan ekkanayak vitappaani alo antiakunne
imma sulu ila Inuit manayo ukapang matasuri. What change have we seen? Has there been any change even after the land claims? And it is frustrating knowing that what we negotiated before, a lot of those have not been followed, and that's the big problem.
Well, even still today, we hear about, like, I guess I'll call them negative aspects of Inuit life. What do you see is the relationship of the land claims and addressing those issues?
It's very, very tough because in some respects, people want to hold on to a traditional lifestyle. And then in other respects, you want to make progress. And progress is defined always in the white man world. And that means you have to make money, you have to have a better job, you've got to have a degree, you've got to move on in life. And the tough challenge that we have is to allow for both societies to work. And in order to do that, lots of times the cost is very high.
Amisualu tau kai te metu so
ye. Tai metu amisualu tai meluk teman adigi tai nala tu lau tau kau yak kaliman la tok tau adigi ngitu magaro le mak tikso gari magaro le tu man.
Now the land claims have to be implemented, and that's the task that's facing youth. We can't afford to have half-educated youth. We're going to have really educated youth that are really dedicated to that implementation process. Otherwise, then there is a possibility that this whole process could fail. Okay, so that's a huge responsibility.
What's my best?
it's you and me that has to know those claims like a back of our hands, so when we need, we move ahead, we use it.
We're not using it, then it really doesn't make any changes at all. One has to use what was negotiated for it to work.
In order to change anything in your life, that you have to get involved.
You gotta have that fire in your belly and believe in something strong enough that you will do it.
You can create something. You have education, you can do something. Our ideas were needed at that time. Your ideas are needed today.